Super Rugby final review. Yes, just one game. I mean, how long can we go on for that? I mean, hey, but then hey, I'm with Steve. How you doing, Steve?
Very good. Thanks for having me yet again. And a long season, but we're finally at the end of the road, aren't we? But good way to finish. But yeah, I could talk. What do you want to do? An hour? 2 hours?
Well, I did say at the beginning of the season we would try and keep these to half an hour, but that was for 7 games. So look, you've got 3 minutes now. Go on. So go on, take us through the tale of the game. What happened?
Right, what happened indeed? Of course, it was the Crusaders versus the Jaguares, and I mean, if you look at this game from the end, you'd probably say there wasn't too many big scoring highlights. But since we've got at least half an hour, as Paul says, we'll go through it in the nitty-gritty of what exactly happened. But it was a very dewy night, wasn't it, in Christchurch? And it was a very
my word! Didn't Justin Marshall let us know?
I had to use it just to annoy you, Paul. That's why I brought it out. Dewy night, dew on the ground.
How many times did he have to tell us during the game, though? Oh, it's dewy. Yeah, no, really? It always is this time of year.
He had to justify of all the handling errors that were happening in the opening stanza of the matchup. Both sides are guilty of them happening, but throughout the opening 10 minutes, it was the Jaguares that were probably the worst off of the two, and it led to the Crusaders dominating the opening part of the matchup with possession and territory on their way. But then we did see the Jaguares did start to get into the matchup, and they were the team that did get the first points of the game, and it was through their fly half Benicia after 15 minutes who got the opening points with a penalty. The first try, though, took 25 minutes, and it was a story of box kicking. Now, I'm pretty sure Brett Hartley, if he watches your shows, would be just ecstatic at watching this try because he hates box kicks like quite a few people do. But there was a lot of box kicks in this little period of the matchup, both sides kicking, waiting for a mistake, and it was eventually that the Crusaders who come away with the Jaguares era after Benicia was held up in the tackle. The ball got ripped free. Kieran Reid did a great job of just flicking the ball straight up to Sam Whitelock, who found himself with acres of space down the left-hand wing, perfectly drew the pass and defender to Cody Taylor, who crawled over the line after Cabelli's, well, what would you call it? It was a desperate attempt to tackle him close to the line. And that was the first try and made the scoreline 7 points to 3. Then we had a really decisive moment in this game.
I mean, the really cool thing about that, I mean, we're having a good discussion in the live chat here about how annoying Justin Marshall is. But one of the that thing was, it was Matt Todd, number 7, ripped the ball. We had then Kieran Reid, number 8, pass the ball to Sam Whitelock. I always get mixed up. Is he a 4 or 5? I think it's 4. Who runs down the line and then passes inside number 2. I mean, all single-digit numbers. This was a forwards play from first to finish on a kick chase. I mean, brilliant. So yes.
I mean, I'll probably going to mention this. I was going to mention it later on, but what really, since we're going about everything here. What really intrigued me about this matchup was the way that the two teams contrastingly played in defence. So, I mean, the first half really was when this was all about. The Jaguares just ran out and they just absolutely spot tackled guys around the waist, nailed them, bang, on the ground. They are like trees in the forest, right? They had big chainsaws going down, chop, 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 rushing out. The corners were coming in, they were folding in nicely, they were shutting them down. But then when you turned it over, it was really good defence, don't get me wrong, but you turned it over to the Crusaders' way of defending, and they were going high. They were taking the player, they were taking the ball, they were holding them up, they were creating mauls, they were getting turnovers. And I thought it was just really interesting to see two such contrasting styles of defence going head-to-head like that and actually having success in their own rights as well as how that style come out against the other side.
Yeah, well, I must admit, I didn't twig about that so much, but yeah, and when you say going high, you mean legally high. You don't mean
around the ball, around the chest,
around the ball, around the chest,
stopping offloads, stuff like that.
Because I think the referee had a good night that night, last night, other night, however long ago it was. So, jeez. There was. So, but no, interesting. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, they were going high. They were trying to get mauls, whereas they were getting chopped down. And really, okay, it was dewy, but that chopping down also stopped or reduced the number of offloads that the Crusaders were able to do because they were going down so quickly. There wasn't like you kind of up in the tackle with your arms free, ready to pass it. Because you were chopped straight down, that kind of stopped the offloads. Maybe that's another way of stopping offloads is to cut down the player really quickly.
Also,
Well,
on the defensive aspect of how the Jaguares played, I'm surprised, really surprised it took so long and so few times that Moanga actually played that little stab grubber kick through the defence on the angle to his wingers when the defence was working really well, how they shifted around from the edges, but it left that space wide open for the outside backs to really play with. And it wasn't really something that they did that often, which kind of surprised me in their attack, and they just got shut down. And I mean, there's nothing you can do but credit the Jaguares the way they tactically played that and got away with it as well. But we'll move on to the next point of the matchup, which I think was a massive turning point of the game as well. So we'll also go through this point by point and go through it as well. But
because I was going to go because I was going to mention the other bit is that actually after Severis's great hands against the Hurricanes, we didn't really see him much in this game at all in that kind of thing. And you're talking about Mwanga trying to kick in behind and create those spaces. We didn't see him or Bridge really get chase onto many balls in that kind of way, did we?
Well, no, I think George Bridge was pretty well occupied with just high balls flying down the side, wasn't he? I mean, isn't he a master? He's a master at taking those high balls, and he gets peppered. And it seems to be, like we've talked about in the past, we talked about the All Blacks squad last week and the weaknesses, I guess you say, of a guy like Sevu Reece, although he did take the few high balls he got given pretty well. George Bridge just everywhere, and he takes them so well. He gets down, and he gets forward. He's got support, and he always secures the ball for his team. I think his ability to do that is underrated, I think, at the Crusaders. Just how important and how crucial that is to how they play as well is massive for them.
Yeah, and we've had lots of talk about Reece and Braden. And to be fair, they've played more games because Bridge has been injured, I think, and so he's not been playing. But we had lots of talk about them. But as soon as Bridge has come back, he's first choice in there, and he's straight in the All Blacks as well. Yes, he might not be as flashy as those other two, but he's one of those guys that the All Black selectors and Crusaders selectors clearly really do rate because of that no error, solid kind of gameplay.
Okay. And it reminds you of one man too, doesn't it? Ben Smith. That's what he's like.
Oh, okay.
Solid,
I was going to talk about someone else, but no, I was going to go Irish on you. But there you go.
Okay, by all means, go Irish on us.
Rob Kearney again. That's a lot of people criticise him, but again, he's one of those guys who just doesn't make mistakes at the back. Is solid there. I remember also one of the Welsh captains saying that they really loved having Lee Halfpenny back there. Again, is he the best, biggest counter-attacking running player? No. Does he ever drop a ball? No. You like that number 15 to be a zero error person. It's nice if they could be X factor as well, but being zero error has got to be the first first point of order.
Yeah, it's consistency, isn't it? And consistently being at a good level and safe. It's like a fullback, they've got to be safe. That's your last line of call too. So you've got to rely on those guys to get the job done. But we will finally move on to the next point, which was, of course, the huge missed opportunity for the Jaguares. And I think this, looking back at full time, was a massive turning point in the game. At the point of it happening, you thought, yes, maybe this won't be the end of it for them. But this has really affected them, I think, long term. Matthias Moroni, massive chance just before half time too, which would have been a real Crusader-like time to strike for them. Matera offloading, an extraordinary, ridiculous. Like, you watched the replay 100 times. I'm still not sure how he got that offload away. Two players tackling him, gives it to Moroni, going to the line, tries to cut back inside off the touchline, gets taken from Havili, and just as he's rolling over, just to plant the ball down like he's done probably 6 billion times in training and in matches, it spills free, and the chance is gone. To me, that was monumental in this match for the Jaguares, and that took a huge chunk of their confidence away.
It did. I mean, he had the player outside him where he could have passed. I mean, this was. We'll obviously get onto it later. This wasn't the. This was kind of. This is where they had the most opportunities. This wasn't his only error or the only attack that he did that could have led to a try. But it was that lack of execution, that lack of just getting through that last bit that really was the difference in this whole game. In that they just didn't get over the line in these kind of opportunities.
Yeah, and you talk about that too of Jaguares, and then what happened in the actual right before halftime just goes to show the difference between the Crusaders and every other team in Super Rugby. Time is up. You've got a scrum. what do? You give it out to someone and you kick it into touch, don't you?
Well, if it's in your own 22, if you're well back in your own half. Also, the scrum hasn't been that solid in that first half. I mean, it was a bit here, both sides did well in the scrum. I mean, the Crusaders got the upper hand in the second half, true, but in the first half it was a very even contest. You didn't know you were going to necessarily get good ball, but but it was a solid scrum. They got a good ball, and Hall decided that he fancied going for a run.
I think the combination between Kieran Reid and Bryn Hall, and the relationship, I guess you could probably call it, is extremely strong. The confidence those two guys, especially Reid to Hall, have is huge, because the confidence that guy has to just say, Rito, I'm having a go. Back me up. Get these back rows on here and let's see what happens. He bolted through only a half little gap. That's all he needed. And he breaks away out of his 22, support to his left side. Brandon was there. He puts the gas down. Then they get close. They're in the 22, and that's when the whole situation changes from a kick it out, let's go to half time, to a, wow, we could actually score some points here. A couple of phases later, and the Argentinian legend, that is Augustine Creevy, is penalised at the breakdown, and Moanga says, I'll take a handy 3 points 30 metres out, and that just changed the lead considerably going into the break. And again, confidence, huge swing. Again, when the Jaguares mentally were like, yeah, they'll just take this out, kick it away, we'll go to the sheds, done. Not happening.
Yeah, and if you talk to players, there really is a whole mood shift if you are the last team to score just before half time. When it happens that close to half time, that suddenly, especially when you've been down the opposition's half, it really does. It really is a hammer blow to the team morale. To be honest, great play. And this is also a good point as to this is why you shouldn't scrum for penalties. You've got more than half the team tied up in one really, really small area. There's lots of space on the pitch. This is what the whole point of scrums is. You can really attack into space, and then that was what we really saw here. Was that these are attacking restarts. They're not penalty machines.
And that sent the two sides to the halftime break. The lead is 7 points to the Crusaders, 10 points to 3. I mean, you looked at that match at halftime, and I was expecting a pretty high score. Do you think it was a surprise that we were that low scoring in the first half? Do you think you were surprised that both sides were that defensively focused in that first 40 minutes?
Not necessarily surprised with that focused, but yes, surprised that neither of the attacks could break down and score more points. Right? We've got two teams here where, from memory, I haven't got the stats on me at the moment. I think it's low 40s and high 30s were the average, was the sort of points. Was it low 30s, high 20s? Maybe low 30s, high 20s were the normal points scored by these two attacks. So you're looking at about that they would normally score 60 points. They didn't get anywhere near. 60. Yes, yeah. They normally score 60 points between them. They didn't get anywhere near that tonight. Which just shows how good defensively both teams were, as you say.
Yep, definitely were. I do like the comment from Unbiased Rugby in the chat there about the Jaguares number 10, Benicia, was for this matchup. Really changed, didn't he? And I can't remember if it was at the end of the first half or the start of the second half. Really changed his whole structure, I guess you could say. Played a lot deeper, was really obvious and clearly kicking, not really for any idea. He lost his way. And for a guy that's been so strong all season long, I was really surprised at how into his shell, and the team, in fact, as well. When you've got so many leaders in that side, allow that to happen and not notice that, boy, this isn't doing us any good. Having a guy standing 15 minutes behind a breakdown, kicking clearly to no one in particular, except for the guys in red, just going straight down their throat, wasn't helping their situation of getting back into that game.
No, and initially in that first half, for the first half hour or so, they were running from deep onto the ball really impressively and hitting it at pace. And because of that, they could choose the gaps and the shoulder that they were going to hit, and they could get over that gain line and make an effort. What happened by him going that far back was all the other players had moved a bit further back, but also they weren't hitting the ball at pace after that anymore. They were taking the ball much more static. And having to start from zero, which meant they couldn't choose the shoulder they were going to hit, and they couldn't choose the gap. They weren't hitting. They weren't at pace already with the ball, and yeah, they stopped getting over that gain line.
Yeah, it was a real disappointment because I think he's been one of the standout players of the season. Has been issued for the Jaguares, but alas, onward we go. It was 10-3 half time, and I mean it's half time. Well, it's the best time for halftime team talk, isn't it?
Oh, halftime team talk. Sorry, yes.
Crack it.
Oh dear, end of season. You see, I'm more happy, but don't worry, because whilst we have a week off, but then we'll be back with the Rugby Championship. So what's going to happen this week? Tomorrow night, we're going to do our final end of season reports for the top 5 teams. On Wednesday, we will have the All Blacks edition where we'll talk about who is going to start against Argentina. Next week, the Rugby Chat on the Tuesday night, we'll be previewing the Rugby Championship. And obviously, we'll be talking more All Blacks on the Wednesday night. Thursday night, we'll start previewing the actual Rugby Championship games themselves. So, yes, just as Super Rugby finishes, we will be kicking back into the Rugby Championship. We will have review shows for you on a Monday night. Stephen and I are under contract negotiations at the moment as to whether he will be hosting them or not. But yes, we'll see. But yeah, we'll be back with the whole same setup for the Rugby Championship. So stick around, hit that subscribe button and the bell and all of that kind of stuff.
Oh, goody stuff coming up, isn't it? Rugby Championship, straight into it. But of course, let's go through second half of this exciting final. I think it was exciting. I've heard a lot of stuff coming out, and just not only media, but also people, fans saying this was a boring match. What was your thought on it? I thought this was an arm wrestle. I was quite taken by the I guess you could say intricate details of the game, rather than the fact they're scoring 60 tries and it was 95-93 at full time. I actually enjoyed this game.
I enjoyed the first hour of the game, and then at the hour mark, then I decided actually, look, it's all over now, and it's just a matter of when. We're just waiting for the referee to blow his whistle, really, because the game is now is pretty much done. So yes, I enjoyed the first hour, but I really wish the Jaguares had kept themselves closer on the scoreboard so that the game kept. And I can see people getting sort of deflated in that last 20 minutes, and therefore coming out of it going, yeah, it's a boring game. Whereas actually the first 60 were really good.
Yeah, the Jaguares definitely did start off the second half with the intent to get back into the matchup, and it was that man that we spoke about earlier, Moroney, once again creating more space.
Well, Matera to Moroney.
To Moroney.
Again, the same
yes.
two as the
same.
Matera to Moroney for the break.
Oh. Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Well done. Chipping over Havili, he regathered, offloaded, and didn't find anyone in support. A big chance going begging. Moroney once again. I mean, is it fair to really blame this guy? I mean, Moroney had a great game, but just really didn't finish off his jobs. But huge for the Jaguares, though. They needed to take one of those 2 chances, didn't they? And that was really the big one. And there, I think, like you talked about getting deflated, that was when the deflation started after that one went astray.
Yeah, you're right. They had to finish these opportunities. They had the opportunities. They didn't finish them off. This one, the support, couldn't hold on to the ball. And you got to say, Moroney, decent game, but, and that's the problem, isn't it? It's a good game, but he shelled the 2 big opportunities. But to be fair to him, at least he got himself in a position to have the opportunities, which other players didn't. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, there's penalties that were costing the Jaguares later on in the matchup, and they were stacking up on them. And the unlikely event of New Zealand sides kicking penalties actually started to take place. Rishi Mo'unga added a couple more to extend the lead out to 16 points to 3. And then as the match wore on, like you spoke about, it did kind of wear off a bit. The Jaguares kind of did resign themselves to the fact that this one wasn't going to flow their way. And the Crusaders, again, credit to them, did take full control of this matchup. Mo'unga added 3 more late on in the piece. And the Crusaders just closed out like a professional outfit does. And like we know that the Crusaders do. And it was just penalties they did it in the second half, wasn't it? It was 3 penalties, took it up to 19 points to 3. The scoreline, I don't think, represents this match fully, but the Crusaders, they know how to close out a game, don't they?
They do. They know how to take opportunities, and they know how to close out a game. And yeah, I guess another thing also, it finishing with seemed like 5 minutes worth of just pass out drive.
Southern rugby.
Oh, jeez, no, please, you can't. And there's some refereeing issues here. Now, this isn't against the Crusaders. This is just against all teams. But quite often, the two guys latching on to the ball carrier. They're latching on before the tackle anyway. Secondly, they get in front of the player quite often, and these sort of things. But the referees never call it. So I wasn't. Yeah, so it wasn't about this referee or about the Crusaders. It's just generally how it's played now. The Jaguars did have one other chance, didn't they? Didn't they have some sort of grubber through from a scrum that and a chip over that just went dead. So I mean,
and he went careering into the advertising. Yep. A little bit too heavy. That was Miotti after Miotti had come on for Benicia. So yeah, that was a change at 10. Did give him a bit more spark, but they kind of lost their way. Like you spoke about earlier, they lost their shape completely.
If they had scored at that point, that it would have closed things up a little bit and made an exciting last sort of 5 or so minutes. But it was one of those ones where the Crusaders played some really, really smart rugby. I mean, as Stephen Harris has said in the chat, he liked how the Crusaders negotiated the Jaguars' line speed by reverting to a kicking game. They did. But I'm not up for the tough conditions rubbish. Yes, it's cold, but that's kind of what you get in evening kickoffs. And we have evening kickoffs all the time here in New Zealand. Sure, the Crusaders are more used to it, but I think more importantly here is the Crusaders are more used to finals rugby than Jaguar is. And to me, I think they'll learn from this one. But I think they kind of couldn't cope with that finals rugby, the pressure and the situation.
And it's the same for both sides, isn't it? They've both got to play in those conditions. They've both got to play in the cold. But post-match, a lot of stats going through it, a lot of interesting points. Tackle count, huge. Crusaders really did do a lot of defence through that match, didn't they?
They did. As you say, the scoreline's 19-3. But the possession territory, the meters run, the passes, all of this kind of stuff, they're all very even. Sure, I mean the Crusaders were running more got further per carry than the Jaguars, but there was interesting contrast of styles as well. The Jaguars passed a lot more; they went wider much quicker than the Crusaders did, which is something we know they do. But I mean, penalty count was even. All the turnovers and all that kind of thing. It was like 18-20 from memory. So all the stats were pretty even. It was just a matter of taking chances, and that's what the Crusaders did. The Jaguars didn't. It was really interesting when Sam Whitelock decided to change from trying to go for the corner and switch to taking penalties and taking threes, because he initially went for the corner, then realised, okay, this isn't. We got held up over the line. I've had enough of this now. Time for us to let's start putting some threes on the board and just get it ticking over, apply some scoreboard pressure, and get, rather than trying to just blast them away with big tries. Let's just kill them with 1,000 cuts. Yeah,
strangle them, choke them, pretty much as the chat was said by WB Charlie. So dead right. They just wore it down, didn't they? Typical Crusaders fashion. But I think based on those stats, I think you got to credit the Jaguars' defence that didn't allow the Crusaders to play with that width, because they were cutting it down, and they only managed to go 1 or 2 out at best before every avenue and every option was cut down and completely sliced out of their chances. So that's on their back, and they did that very well for the hour or so that they kept that up nicely before it fell apart.
Yeah, I mean, let's be true. We've been talking about this back three, including Enor actually, who's in that 13 jersey, and they, apart from Havili running kicks back, they really didn't see much of this game at all. And yet, Reese is the top try scorer in the competition. Didn't look like scoring all night. There'll be a whole bunch of people who've lost money at the TAB on that one. So it was. They did a very good job restricting this team to 19 points. The problem is they didn't do a good job nailing their opportunities, because you're not going to win a game with 3 points.
I mean, you take on those 2 opportunities that they butchered.
1901 you might have done, but not now.
You had 10 to 14 points that scoreline, and you're looking, 19-13, 19-17. It's a different game, isn't it? It's a really different game. So totally. Those chances change it completely. But man of the match did go to Pablo Matera. Phenomenal performance, phenomenal player. You'd argue probably one of the best, if not the best, back rower in the game currently for his form, the way he's playing. Yeah, bold call, bold call.
Bold call.
But like the comments have said as well, I don't think you can take this side transferring into Argentinian colours lightly. They're a phenomenal side with now world-class players, not potentially world-class players like we've seen in the past. They have world-class players there now. And to shut out the South Africans in their own conference like they did, get to where they've come, make it to the final, they've actually made a big statement here globally for their international game as well. But Matera's a guy we talk about. Brilliant player, had a great game, really was the life and soul of that team throughout that performance.
He was. It's one of the players that Herman and myself highlighted in the preview that we did last Thursday, because he was the leading offloader coming into this game out of all the players in this game, and then like the next 8 were Crusaders. I mean, he was the only he's the only player that offloads essentially for the Jaguares, and so a lot was going to come through him. There's a lot of talk about him being the number 6 in the world at the moment, or blindside, because obviously South Africa play their blindside at 7. But yeah, he's definitely in that conversation, isn't he? And their 2 locks made a mess of the Crusaders line out again, sealing 2 out of the 6 lineouts from, again, sorry, doing all from memory. I should have made notes about this, shouldn't I? Prepared for this whole show. But so you've got to say that, yeah, they're going to cause teams a lot of problems at the line out. So you're not going to be able to just kick downfield and piggyback your way into their 22 and line out more, because you're not going to get those lineouts back all the time. That defence is smothering. It's hard to score against. And when you've got Nicolas Sanchez in there, it's going to be interesting to see how he slots back in to this system, because obviously he's been away for a year now, playing a different system in France, and these guys are all now used to used to each other. So he might not slot straight back in. He might take a while to reintegrate.
Yep, it will be interesting to see how that does work out. Now, for the Crusaders, I think key man, Richie Mo'unga, a lot of talk about him and throughout the week as well. But all final series, 17 from 17 kicks at goal. Not very often you say that about a New Zealand fly half or goal kicker in any shirt, is it? It just doesn't happen that often.
Well, not since DC's left. The way that Hall and him run the game is massively important for them, and I think you had the players. Also, you had your senior players like Whitelock, like Reed, having the experience in there, keeping the guys calm. But you had some of the lesser names getting through a hell of a lot of work. Fesu Douglas was from like 11 tackles, and he went off after 50 minutes. I mean, he put in a massive shift before Tafua came on, and then Tafua just took over where he left off. And so you had some of the some of the sort of not lesser names getting through a chunk of work in that game, and they did some really good work.
You spoke a little bit about the second row, which I just want to elaborate on that a little bit. The guys are maturing, aren't they? The Argentinian players. Lavanini is one guy I would like to point out. A real loose cannon a couple of years ago. Almost a guaranteed yellow card per match, wasn't he? He's changed. He's grown up. He's matured. He's developed into now a solid player who you wouldn't mind putting in any team, because he's not the liability he used to be as well. So they're getting real growth, I guess you could say, out of a lot of those guys now coming through, getting a bit older in the years and actually developing nicely.
Yeah, absolutely. They've got a lot of experience playing together in this competition, which has helped. As an organisation, they now know how to travel stuff, whereas initially they didn't. Initially, they were you'd got to figure out how you do recuperation, how you fit your training in around it, all that kind of stuff, and that takes their institutional knowledge that they've had to gain over the last 4 years, which has led to this. Which is all very good, but what side belt does Philip? I have no idea what that's comment is in the live chat there from Sarah. Anyway, I'm totally lost. But yes, so they have grown into this as not only as players but as an organisation as well, which is great to see.
Indeed, it does. I've got a couple little points extra at the end here. Selections. I've got a question mark. Cancelero not in the team. Probably one I'll probably put in there in future because of his ability to make things happen. Maybe they missed out on what he could have done at the end there. But aside from that, lowest scoring final in history. Did you see that coming?
No, absolutely not. As I say, these two sides averaged 60 points. We got 23, 20, 21, 22. Jeez, I can't add up.
22.
So, which is it's less than half of what you would have probably had in mind for this. I was expecting around about the sort of 40, 50 point mark. To be honest, not the 20 point mark. So, I was expecting it to be a much more exciting scoring gap match than this. But no, it's only a different type of game. It was still exciting, still great to watch. But finished before its time.
And it was 1 point less, just for everyone's references, than the 2016 final, the Hurricanes versus the Lions, which had 23 points scored in it. So just the 1 point less. But one last thing I'd like to add was that the main reason the Jaguars lost this final is that they didn't do the big jumping rave pump up at the start of the match. I was so gutted and disappointed we did not see that. That's one way to get your team pumped up and going. Where was it?
Yeah, absolutely.
We needed that.
They probably didn't fly all those players over. You see, that's the problem.
Well, they should have. Fill the plane with fans. Fill it with all of them. That's what they need.
That would have. Yeah, it's a shame we didn't see that again. That was good fun, and I've got a funny feeling we might be seeing that one maybe come Rugby World Cup time if they make it into the playoffs. It definitely does make that whole England, France, Argentina group so much more interesting, because going into this, Argentina, I mean, they'd lost all their games against Wales last summer. Their coach was had to sort of resigned and stuff, and it was all a big mess until Desmond stepped in. France were all over the shop, but seem to be actually getting their act together now. And England seems to be falling apart. So what looked like an easy pool for England has now turned into a really, really interesting pool that's going to be for the Rugby World Cup. So that's going to be really kind of cool. We do have the Rugby Championship before then, obviously, and also the Mitre 10 Cup as well will be going on. That kicks off just before the Rugby World Cup. So there's so much rugby coming. Yay!
Indeed, there's always something happening. But that's all I've got, and I've managed to fill in half an hour quite easily. We could do another hour if you like. I mean, we could go till midnight.
I guess the other thing I would say is, as a kind of a summing up of the season, is we had one of the most unpredictable regular seasons, followed by a totally predictable finals series where every home team won. Maybe the individual games and what happened in the games wasn't entirely predictable, but the results were. So it was interesting to go from some absolute chaos and nightmare picking situations to what was, I say, a very easy finals series to pick.
Yeah, and just to go out on a high note, I'd like to say, nice to see you down there, Paul, below me on Super Group this season. Excellent work. I'm taking that one to the bank. Every second.
Oh dear! Thank you very much, everyone in the live chat. Been great to have you. Apart from Sarah Reek, we didn't like you didn't need your comments. But everybody else, do join me again tomorrow night for the Hash Rugby chat, where Herman and Stephen will be joining me to review the last 5 teams and give them their scores. And then we'll be back on Wednesday night with the All Blacks edition. Where we'll look at the team that's going to face Argentina. So don't forget also, head over to Cornflakes Crib and Cornflakes channel as well. Now Super Rugby is over, lots more rugby gaming stuff going on there.